We begin today the Gemara on the bottom of Yutes Amud Beis, Hahu Chamra, 5 lines from the bottom of the Yamud. So the Gemara here is talking about the hezik of shein, when the animal eats. So what's the halacha of shein? When it eats in someone's private property, ubir b'sdei acher, so then you have to pay nezek shalim. But if it eats in Reshus Harabim, you'll be potter. But this is only if it eats something that is edible for it, something that the animal usually eats. If it eats something, it bites something that like clothing or things like that, that's not normal for it, so then it's a different halacha. Then it's a tilda of keren. Okay, so the Gemara brings over here an incident that happened. Ahu chamra, there was a donkey, the ochal nama, it ate bread, upal silasala, and as it was eating the bread, which was in a basket, it also chewed the basket. So Chayv Rav Yehuda l'shalom nezek shalom aname. So Rav Yehuda said that the owner has to pay full pay for the bread that his donkey ate. V'asala, and on the basket chatzi nezek. He's chewing the basket. He only has to pay chatzi nezek because it's not normal for an animal to choose a basket. Rashi here says this story happened obviously in Bavel, and this is Rav Yehuda, which was in Bavel. And usually in Bavel, the Gemara said before, you're not chayiv to pay a knas because the Bezdin in Bavel didn't have the power to pay this knas. So you wouldn't have to pay it, but if the nizik will grab something from the mazik, then he can keep it. That's what the Gemara means by this. Tfisa, you can go ahead and grab something. Okay, but the Gemara now asks on this, V'amai, why is he only chayiv to pay for the fact that the animal chewed the basket chatzi nezek? Even the orchel mechal nama, if it's ordinary for the animal to eat bread, so orchel nama lefalusa sala, as it's eating the bread and it's inside the basket, it'll chew the basket together with the bread. So it should pay full pay for both. And says the Gemara, the case of here, what happened was the ochal, it ate the bread, it was done eating the bread, and then vahada palis, and then it came and it chewed the basket after the bread is done. So that's when, if it's chewing the basket afterwards, that's not normal for the animal to do.
We're still hungry.
Well, so if it was still hungry, then it would be normal. But over here, it got wild. It got, I don't know, it went and chewed the basket. So for that, you only pay chatzi nezek. But the Gemara asks, we're talking here about a donkey eating bread. What do pass or chayu? Is it normal for a donkey to eat bread? Is this the food for a donkey? But I'll ask you what it says in the Braise. Ochlo pas ubasar, an animal eats bread or meat or v'tafshel, other cooked food. Mishalom chatzi nezek. You only pay half a pay for this because this is not the food that an animal usually eats, unless it gets very wild. It doesn't eat this. So my lab behemoth. Don't you think this Braise is talking about an animal, which includes the donkey that we're speaking about it? It says the Gemara loy bechaya. We're talking here about an undomesticated animal or a wild beast that will not eat bread. But a donkey will eat bread if it's hungry. Fragt the Gemara, if so, basar urchehu. If we're talking here about a chaya, so how could the Braise say that basar meat is not normal for a chaya to eat? But we know an undomesticated animal like a lion or animals like that, they eat meat. And says the Gemara the Matfi. This Braise is talking about the meat that was roasted, and these animals eat raw meat. So the animal, if it eats roasted meat, it's not normal for it. Or the Gemara says another pshat. This Braise, when it said achla pas, is talking specifically betavia. It's talking about a deer, and a deer is different. A deer does not eat not bread and not meat. And that's what this Braise is saying. Another pshat, we are talking about an animal which would include even a donkey, but why is it saying that it doesn't eat bread? It does eat bread, but over here it's talking about a bipsaida. This was a piece of bread that was on the table. So it's not the derech for the donkey to go and to climb onto the table to eat the bread. That's Rashi's pshat in the Gemara. The Rashba brings another pshat. The Rashba says, a donkey, if it's hungry, it will climb onto the table and eat the bread as well. He says the pshat is his greatest in the Gemara, ubipsusa, with a saf in the end, that it's talking about a kind of bread which crumbs is a different kind of bread that you put into, it's like you put into soup. That's what the Rabbein Chananel here also says, and that's a kind of bread that the donkey does not eat. But regular bread it does eat, and that was a story that happened over here. Another story the Gemara brings, Ahu Barche, there was a goat. The Chazal lifta pumidadana. It saw a lifta, which is turnip, on top of a barrel. So sarich, salik, it climbed up and it went onto the barrel, achla lifta, and it ate the turnip, v'tavre ledana, and it broke the barrel. So chayve Rava lifta ve'adana nezek shalim. So Rava was mechayiv the person to pay both for the turnip that it ate and for the barrel. For both of them, it should pay nezek shalim. Why? Why does it have to pay for the barrel as well? My time, since it's normal for the animal to go and eat this turnip, so it's also normal for it when it sees this turnip to climb up onto the barrel and to eat it. So if it breaks the barrel as it's climbing up, that's not some kind of a wild behavior. That's a regular behavior. It's part of shein. It's actually the shainim say that you have to pay for the eating of the turnip because it's the hezek of shein ate with its teeth, and climbing up on the barrel and it broke it. That's the hezek of regel when it climbed up. It's normal to do this. Omar Ilfa. Ilfa said the following halacha: Beheme b'reshus harabim. A beheme is walking in the reshus harabim. Now again, in the reshus harabim, usually an animal eats there, you potter. But what happened was, it stuck out its neck and it ate from the food that's on a load, on a package that's on another animal. Chayeves. In such a case, you will be chayev. My time, why over here you chayev if this is all taking place in the reshus harabim, and usually in the reshus harabim you potter? The reason is because gabi chaverta kechatzer anizik dami. Because the food that's on the back of another animal, that's like food which is in a private place, in a private property on another animal. So that for that you're going to be chayiv, just like if it went into someone else's private property, you're chayiv. Says the Gemara, shall we say that there's a raya to what Ilfa said from the Braisa? Because the Braisa says, if a person has a basket and the basket is strung behind him, and then upashtat savara, an animal came behind this person and stuck out its neck and ate from his basket. Chayeve. So the Braisa says also this similar thing that you'll be chayev. It's hanging on his side or on his back. Yeah. So the animal will be chayev for eating from it. So you see over here, because it's eating from your private basket, you'll be chayev. So the Gemara says there's no raya from this Braisa because that Braisa is a different case. Keda Omar Rava has said regarding something else, which Gemara will quote right here in a minute, b'koifetzes, that if the animal, even while it's in the reshus harabim, is jumping, so when it jumps, because this is a wild behavior, so you're going to be chayev for what it damages, even in the reshus harabim, because then it's a toilda not of regel, which is the ordinary behavior of the animal, but it's a toilda of keren, when it gores with its horns. So over here as well, when it ate from this basket, it gave a jump, and therefore you're going to be chayiv for that, even in the reshus harabim. So hachanami here as well, this Braisa is b'kefetzes. The animal jumped, and therefore you're going to be chayiv. Where did the Rava say this pshat of the animal jumping in the reshus harabim that you'd be chayiv? Regarding this statement here, the Amar Rabbi Yishia said, Behema b'reshus harabim, an animal that's walking in the reshus harabim. Hol chavachla, if as it's walking it eats, petura, for that you potter in the reshus harabim. Amdavachla, but if it stands and eats, chayeves, so then you'll be chayiv for that. So in this, Rav explained, what was Rabbi Yishia saying? What is the difference? If the animal is eating while it's walking in the reshus harabim, it's the normal behavior of an animal, and for that you always potter in the reshus harabim. When it stands in one place, it's also the normal behavior for the animal. And on this, Amar Rava says, that the animal jumped, and because it jumped, so therefore it's a wild behavior, for that you're going to be chayiv in the reshus harabim because it's a telda of keren. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara, but many Rishonim disagree with Rashi and say that when the Gemara here says that when an animal jumps in the reshus harabim, you're going to be chayiv, it's not because it's a telda of keren. What the Gemara is saying is, it's still a telda of shein, but nevertheless, the Gemara is making a distinction regarding shein itself. Usually, the pasuk says that when an animal eats, ubir b'zdei acher, only if it eats in a private property are you chayiv. But it eats in the reshus harabim, you're going to be potter. But what Rav is saying is, but if the animal jumps, then, even though it is still a toilda of shein, you're still going to be chayiv even in the reshus harabim. That's the point that the Gemara is saying here. That's how many Rishonim learn this Gemara.
Because the jumping is a wild.
The jumping, no, it's not because it's a toilda of keren. When it eats in the reshus harabim, the point is, when it eats in the reshus harabim as it's going along, that's something that the Torah pated. But if it jumps, that's not that over there. You're going to be chayiv. By Rab Zera asked another shaila regarding this distinction that shein in the reshus harabim is potter, but in the reshus hayachid is chayev. But how about the following case? Misgalgal mahu. What if it was rolling? What does rolling over here mean? So there's two pshatim for this. Rashi's pshat in the Gemara is that the animal took, let's say, a bundle of wheat, and it took it from the reshus hayachid and it rolled it into the reshus harabim, and then it ate it in the reshus harabim. Or it could be the other way around also. It took the bundle of wheat of the reshus harabim and it rolled it into the reshus hayachid. Will it be chayiv or pater? Do I look at where it took it from, or do I look at where it ate it? That's Rashi's pshat. Taisus' pshat is that misgalgal over here means that this was something, there was a bundle of wheat that was rolling down on its own. There was a place where there was a hill and it was rolling down on its own from the Rishus HaYachid into the Rishus HaRabim, and the animal went and ate it while it was still in the Rishus HaYachid. But it was rolling down, it was on its way to the Rishus HaRabim. So the shaila is, do I say because it was on its way rolling down to the Rishus HaRabim that you would be chayiv for that, maybe because it was already on its way to the Rishus HaRabim? That's Taisus' pshat. Okay, well, let's learn the continuation of the Gemara according to Rashi. The animal rolled it from one rishus to another. What's going to be Allah in such a case? So the Gemara explains, hey Chidami, what are we talking about? This is a bundle that was in the Rishus HaYachid. Becomes galgal va'asi mirishus HaYachid l'Rishus HaRabim. The animal rolls it from Rishus HaYachid to the Rishus HaRabim. Also the same thing, the opposite. What's going to be the halacha? Tashema, so the Gemara brings a eye. The Tani Rab Chia taught in the Braise. The what?
Yeah, but Hesek or the eight?
He ate it. He ate up this bundle. Right? So it took it from the Rishus HaYachid, but it ate it in the Rishus HaRabim. So Rab Chia taught, Masoi, if you have a package that has, let's say, a barley in it, Rashi says, a package of barley, Miktsase bifnim, some of this package is inside the Rishus HaYachid, or Miktsase b'chutz, some of it is outside the Rishus HaRabim, and an animal eats from it. So Achla bifnim, if it eats it on the inside of the Rishus HaYachid, chayeves, you'll be chayev. Achla b'chutz, if it eats it on the outside in the Rishus HaRabim, petura, so then it's pater. So what is the meaning of this brayse? My love, don't you think that what this means is misgalgal va'asi? That what it's saying is this package that was right in the middle, if the animal schlepped it, it rolled it into the Rishus HaRabim, you'll be pater. And if it schlepped it and rolled it into the Rishus HaYachid, you'll be chayiv. So therefore we see over here that it depends where it ate it, whether you'll be chayiv or pater. So the Gemara says, no, that's not necessarily the pshat here. Loi, that's not what it means that the animal rolled it. Eime, rather read it as follows. This package was right in the middle. Half in a Rishus HaYachid and half in a Rishus HaRabim. Ochla al mashe bifnim, when it ate the barley of that package which is inside the Rishus HaYachid, chayeves. For that part it's chayev. Al mashe b'chutz, but for the part that it ate which is outside the Rishus HaRabim, petura, it'll be pater. Ibai Seime, another pshat Gemara says, Kika Amar Rab Chia, when this Braise Rab Chia taught here, what he was talking about is Bipsila de aspasta, stalks of aspasta. Aspasta is some kind of a fodder, I think. No, how do they touch it over there? Aspasta. Do they have a translation for it? No, aspasta. Okay, but the point is that it's long stalks, and what happens is when the animal starts eating it, so half of it is in the Rishus HaYachid and half of it is in the Rishus HaRabim. But as the animal is eating and it goes into its mouth, so it draws it in its mouth. What was before in the Rishus HaYachid gets drawn into its mouth where it is in the Rishus HaRabim. Or the other way around, if it's standing in the Rishus HaYachid, it draws it to itself in the Rishus HaYachid. So it didn't roll it. If it rolls it from one rishus to another, so then over there you could say that you'd be chayiv according to the place where it was, or according to the place where it came to, because it changed the location. But over here, it began eating it where it is, and it just, as it goes into its mouth, it moves into its mouth, into the rishus that it is. Over here, that's a different halacha.
It's a rapid growth plant whose long stalks.
Yeah, it's long stalks,
cut
yeah.
Down at
Exactly.
intervals
But you're
and
saying
used
that-
for fodder.
You're saying that the behemoth is in one shrus and the
Right.
sheep's in another shrus.
Right.
It's big,
But it's eating it. It began. It began.
That's a different about you, right?
No, but over here though, it began eating the aspasta, which was in the same rishus where it is. It began eating the aspasta, which is in the rishus harabim where the behemoth is. But that same vegetable, that same aspasta, is a long stalk, and one end of it is in the rishus hayachid, and another end of it is in the rishus harabim. But we're not talking about where there was something that started in the Rishus HaYachid and it rolled it into the Rishus HaRabim. It's a long stalk which was in both Rishus, and as it eats it, it's taking it into its mouth. Okay, let's go to the next piece of the Gemara. This goes on the Mishnah. The Mishnah said here the rule regarding Shein, so that Shein is only chayiv in the Rishus HaYachid. So the Mishnah begins saying that what's the hezek of Shein? When the animal eats something which is food fit for the animal to eat. Then the Mishnah says, Achloksus, if the animal eats clothing, it eats things that are not edible for it. So then, the Mishnah says, you only pay chatzi nezek. This is a told of keren. And then the main thing the Gemara is going to focus on is what it said after this in the Mishnah. When are you chayiv? Only in Rishus HaNizik. Rishus HaRabim, potter. But in the Rishus HaRabim, you would be potter. So the Gemara asks on this, ahai. This statement, that in the Rishus HaRabim, you potter, on what case was it going? Was it talking about when the animal eats regular food that's fit for it? Or maybe the Mishnah was saying this even when the animal eats food that's not fit for it, clothing, whatever, things like that, in the Rishus Harabim, you would still be potter. So the Gemara will explain this. Amar Rav, so Rav says, Akulu. When it says that the animal that eats is potter in the Rishus Harabim, that's not only if it eats food that's fit for it, even if it eats food that's not fit for it, which is really a tolda of keren, it's doing something unusual, and usually in Rishus Harabim Yechayev, but Rav says, no, still the Mishnah is saying you'd be potter for that. My time, what's the reason for this? Because kol ha-mishana. If you have somebody else before you that did something unusual, he left his clothing in the middle of the street. It's not a place to leave your clothing. He went and left his clothing there. Now, ba acher, a second person comes along, vishina boy, and he allowed his animal also to act wild and go and eat that clothing that was left there. Potter. The second person that allowed his animal to go and eat it will be potter, since the first person is the one that left his clothing in a place that he shouldn't have left it. So therefore you'll be potter. So it goes in both cases of the Mishnah, not only when the animal eats something which is fit for it, even when it eats this clothing. Shmuel disagrees. He says, no. If the animal is eating fruits and vegetables in the Rishus Harabim, then that's shein. It eats with its teeth, and normal food that's fit for it. That's potter in the Rishus Harabim. If it's eating garments, vessels, other things that not fit for it, that's a tolda of keren and chayeves. It's chayev in the Rishus Harabim. He doesn't hold to this concept because the other person left it there. He wasn't supposed to leave it there. So now you're going to be potter for that. Your animal also went and did something wild. You're going to be chayev for this. Rish Lakish actually said, like Rav, Akulu, that when the Mishnah says you potter in Rishus Harabim, it is going on both cases. Whether it ate food that's fit for it, or it ate the ksus and kalim, you're also going to be potter. Rish Lakish follows his opinion that he said elsewhere. Rish Lakish says later here in the Masechta, Shtei paris b'Rishus Harabim. If there are two cows that are in the Rishus Harabim, Achas Revutza, one sits down, it lies down in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, which is not normal for an animal to do in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, just to lie down in the middle. And V'achas Ma'aleches, and another one is walking along its way. And what happened? Bata Mahaleches Beruvutza. The cow that's walking got angry, it got wild, and it kicked. This is a tolda of keren. It kicked the animal that was lying there. So Petura, the animal that kicked and damaged the animal that was lying there, will be potter. Why? Because the owner that allowed his animal to sit there in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, you were Mishana. You let your animal sit there in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, and then my animal encountered your animal and got wild. So I'm not responsible for that because you left your animal here. But Revutza, b'Mahaleches, if the animal that was lying there kicked the animal that was walking, chayeves, you'll be chayev for that. You damaged in the Rishus Harabim. So here you see, Rish Lakish says this point. If the first animal that was there was left there in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, it's not supposed to be left there in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, so another animal that comes and damages it is potter. Same thing also, you leave your clothing in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, an animal comes and eats it, so then the Baal HaBehei, you'll be potter for that. But Rabbi Yechanan Amar, however, Rabbi Yechanan goes back to our Mishnah and he says, like Shmuel, Lo shanu ela peiros v'yirakis. Regarding fruits and vegetables over here, if the animal eats it in Rishus Harabim, you potter. Avol ksus v'kelim, but if it ate clothing or other vessels in the Rishus Harabim chayeves, you will be chayev. Which seems like that he holds like Shmuel. So the Gemara now explains, Leimeh, shall we say, Rabbi Yechanan less lay the Rish Lakish. That doesn't mean that Rabbi Yechanan also disagrees with the other statement that Rish Lakish said, Afila b'shtei paris, regarding the two cows, one cow that was lying in the Rishus Harabim, and then another cow was walking along and kicked it. Will he also disagree with Rish Lakish in that case, that you should be potter? Why did you leave your cow lying here? So the Gemara says, no, you can't compare these two things. Why not? It's not the same thing. Leaving your clothing in the middle of the Rishus Harabim and allowing your animal to lie in the middle of the Rishus Harabim is not the same thing. Why? Lo'ilam islei ksos. Lo'ilam islei ksos. Lo'ilam islei, sorry, this is how you read it. Lo'ilam islei. Really, he holds on what Rish Lakish said. That if you're allowing your animal to lie in the Rishus Harabim, and someone else's animal comes and kicks it, you're going to be potter. But by clothing though, it's different. If a person left a jacket, a sweater, something in the Rishus Harabim, this is actually something which is to be expected. This is normal. When a person is traveling in the Rishus Harabim, sometimes a person rests and he puts down a garment of his to rest, and then he picks it up afterwards. So the fact that your animal came and ate up someone's clothing in the Rishus Harabim, you can't blame the person that left the garments there and say, why did you leave your garments in the middle of the Rishus Harabim? No, it actually is normal to leave your garments sometimes in a place in a Rishus Harabim. To allow your behemoth just to lie down in the middle of the Rishus Harabim, that's not normal. So over there, Rabbi Yechanan agrees to Rish Lakish.
Maybe it's the rest in the middle.
Huh? has to go on the side of the road. We're talking here that the animal is resting in the middle of the Rishus Harabim. That's not normal. Huh?
As long as there's also middle Rishus
No.
The person knows what he's doing. The behemoth doesn't.
Okay, let's go to the next thing. In the Gemara, what did it say in the Mishnah? The Mishnah said that even though when an animal eats in the Rishus Harabim, you put it to pay for the damages, that you don't pay full pay. But the benefit that your animal derived from this food, the hana, that you do have to pay. So Bava Kama, what does that mean? How much do you pay? You don't pay full pay for what it ate, but what do you pay? So Rabba says, Demei Omer, you pay the value of straw. So let's say if your animal ate barley, and it's good, expensive food that an animal eats, but you wouldn't serve your animal barley necessarily, you would serve your animal just very cheap straw. So when it ate and it had hana from this barley, you have to pay the value of straw, which is what you would feed your animal. That's the kind of hana that you had. So you don't pay the full price of what it actually ate. Rava says, no, you do have to pay some more. You have to pay the price of this item, of this barley that it ate, but you pay demei item bezoil. You pay not the full price of this barley, you pay a reduced cheap price from this barley. Rashi says that means you pay 2/3 of its price. You don't pay the full price of market value because the person says, I don't usually feed my animal barley. I'll feed him barley if there's a sale and it's very cheap, then I might feed him barley. So therefore over here, you have to pay only a cheap price of this barley. This is in Rishus Harabim. Yeah, the Chiddush over here is even though Rishus Harabim you potter, but for the hana, this level of payment you still have to pay. Tanya Kavasei the Rave, we learned in a Braisa like Rave, and Tanya Kavasei the Rabbe that is, we learned in a Braisa like Rabbe, and Tanya Kavasei the Rave, we learned in another Braisa like Rave. Tanya Kavasei the Rabbe, we learned in a Braisa like Rabbe. The Braisa says that Rab Shimon ben Yechi, Eim Shalem Sel Demei Amar Bulvad. It ate even barley, you only pay the price of straw. Tayik Vasei the Rave. On the other hand, we learned like Rave. Im Nenis, if it had hana in the Rishus Harabim, Mishalemis Mashanenis, you pay for the hana. Keitzad, how? What do you pay? Achla kave kabayim. It ate 1 kav or 2 kavim of barley, let's say. Ein oimrim tishalem demeyen. You don't have to pay the full price of it. Ella oimdim. What we estimate is kama adam reitz lahachal behemtei dava haroila. How much a person would give to eat the animal, how much an animal would eat from this barley. Even though usually the person does not feed his animal barley, he usually feeds it just very cheap straw. But if over here it ate barley, so he's going to have to pay a certain percent of this barley that it did eat, according to what the person would feed his animal barley. Lefichach, this Braisa concludes and says, therefore, if the animal ate wheat, or something else which is going to cause the animal pain. The animal it doesn't want to eat wheat b'chlal, it doesn't have any hana, it just it gives pain to the animal, patura. So since there's no hana involved in this, so then you're going to be totally potter. For the damage that it did, you're potter. You only chay for the hana. But over here, if it ate chitim has no hana, so you'll be potter. Rav Chisda says to Rami Bachama, you weren't together with us last night inside the Tchum, in the Tchum, in other words, close and together with us. The Bayla Mili Ma'al Yisa, we were discussing a very, very geshmaka subject. So, and you weren't here to join us with this discussion. So Omar, he said, my Mili Ma'al Yisa, what was this geshmaka in that you were discussing? Amalei, so he said the discussion was as follows. Hadar b'chotza chaveiroi shaloi medaitai. If your person goes and lives in a person's house, a person's courtyard, without his knowledge, the Taisus over here says the Shalom B'dait and the Gemara is lav dafka. You go and you live in someone's house. Question is, tzarich lahalis leischar? Do you have to pay him rent for this, or ain't tzarich? Or you don't have to pay him rent? You moved in, you lived there in a person's house. Do you have to pay him rent or not? So the Gemara explains when exactly this shaila comes up. Hey Chidomi, what are we talking about over here? Are we talking about, let's say, a room that a person has in his basement and it's not even set to be rented out? Nobody rents here. It's not designated to rent out at all. The owner doesn't make any money off of this. And also the gavra, the person that moved in and is living there, Dulay Ovid Lemegar, he also is not going to pay for any other place that he would rent. He has enough rooms available for him to go and sleep in for free. So he's not a person that would pay any rent for this. So if so, this is zel loy nene. This person that slept there, he didn't have hana of any value because he wouldn't be ready to pay for anything else. He has enough other rooms available for him to go and sleep in for free. And v'zel lechaser. And the owner of this room also is not losing anything, because it's not like this room, if you wouldn't be here, I would rent it out to someone else. No, it's not a room that's made for rental at all. So why should you pay for this? There's no shaila here. Elo b'chotzer the kaimela agre. This is a courtyard, it's a room, it's in a house that it is designated for rental. The Gavra David Lemega. And this person that's renting here, he's a person that would pay rent for another place. There's the only place where he could live is in a place where he can pay rent, and he would be ready to pay. So if so, of course he would have to pay for this, because then the person that lived there is having a hana of a value because he would be ready to pay for this. And v'zeh chaser. And the owner here is losing out. You're living there for free and you're not allowing him to make his income from this rental. So for such a case, for sure you should be chayiv to pay. So what was this discussion? Says the Gemara Leitzriche, the discussion was as follows. This is a room that's not designated for a rental. But v'gavre, the Ovid Lemega, and this is a person that lived there and he would pay for rent. He would pay to rent another room. Samai, what would be the halach in such a case? Do you have to pay for living there or not? Matzi Amalei, do you say the person that lived there could tell the homeowner, Mai chasaticha, what did I take from you? True, I lived there and I gained something out of this, but you own this room and it's not designated for any rental, so you're loy chaser, you're not lacking anything, so why should I pay you? Or perhaps we say, Matzi Amalei, the homeowner could say to him, Ha'is Hanis, you're having a hana of a value over here. If not for my room that would be available for you to live here, you would pay for another place to live in. So if so, you had a hana of a value, so you have to pay for that. So this was the shaila. This is the shaila that's known as zeh nene v'zeh loy chaser. The person that lived there is having a hana of a value, but yet the homeowner is not losing anything, because this is a room that's not even designated. It's not made for a rental at all. It's just an empty place that's not used for anything. That's the shaila. So Rami Bava Kama said that Masnisani, this shaila you're asking, this is the Mishnah that we just learned. So he asked him, who is Rami Bava Kama speaking to over Rav Chisda? So Rav Chisda asked him, Hi Masnisan, which Mishnah is this? Amalei, so Rami Bava Kama says to Rav Chisda, Lechita Shamashli, if you'll serve me, I'll tell you which Mishnah it is. Shaka Sudrei, so Rav Chisda took a handkerchief, Karachle, he wrapped it around him, so he served him, and then Rami Bava Kama told him which Mishnah it is. Amalei, this is our Mishnah that we just learned regarding an animal that eats in the Rishus Harabim. What does the Mishnah say? Im nenis. If the animal derived benefit, it's a hana, and it's a hana of a certain value because the owner of this animal would have been ready to pay for food otherwise. Mishalemis mashanenis, you pay for the hana. So you see in our Mishnah that you have to pay for the hana. If you would be ready to pay for this hana, so then it has a value. So you took hana from another yid, you have to pay for this hana. That's what it says on a Mishnah. So if so, he said you can prove from here that hazeh nene v'zeh loy chaser, even if the other person is not losing out, you'd be chayiv. But Rav said about this, Rami Bava Kama said that this is our Mishnah. Omar Rav, so Rav says there's no raya from our Mishnah at all. Kamal echoli v'loy margish gavre. How much does this individual, Rami Bava Kama, not even feel at all? The Marei Sayeh, that the Eibishter helped him out when he brought the raya from this Mishnah, that Rav Chisda didn't challenge this proof. Even though the proof that he's bringing from our Mishnah is not a good proof, it's not compared at all. Nevertheless, Rav Chisda accepted the proof that he brought from a Mishnah, and the Gemara explains why he can't bring any proof from a Mishnah. Why not? Because in our Mishnah, the animal ate and it had a no of a value, otherwise you would have paid somewhere else for this. And the owner of whatever it ate is losing. You're eating up his produce, his barley, or whatever it is. So that's not what our shiloh was. Our discussion was when a person has a benefit of a value and the owner is leichasa, he's not losing out anything. In the case of you moving into someone's home where the room is not even made for a rental, so it's not the same thing at all. So how did it bring a raya from our Mishnah? So the Gemara explains, Rami Bava Kama, the reason why Rami Bava Kama did bring a raya from our Mishnah is because he held stam peiris b'reshus harabim. When you have peiris that are on the reshus harabim, afkuri mafkiluhu. The owner is mafkirit. He considers it to be ownerless. He doesn't expect to get the value of a damage that would happen if he leaves it in the reshus harabim. Taisus over here explains it doesn't mean that he's completely mafkirit, because if he's completely mafkirit, then you wouldn't have to pay him even the hana, because he's not the owner anymore. But he gives up. He knows that if an animal eats from it, he's not going to get the full pay. He's only going to get the pay of this hana for it, or even he actually expects to get less from the hana. So therefore, Rami Bava Kama considered our Mishnah to be a case of Zeh Nene V'Zeh Loy Chaser, because he wasn't expecting B'chlal to get this pay. Similar to a person that has a room where he's not even expecting to rent it out at all. It's not even designated for a rental. Okay, the Gemara now here brings a few rayas over here to this shaila. Again, we're discussing a case of Zeh Nene. One person has a na of a value, but the person you're having a na from is Loy Chaser. He's not losing anything. So are you chayiv to pay for this? So Tanam, we learned in the Mishnah, Hamakiv Chaveiroi Mishalosh Ruchaisav. A person that surrounds his friend from three sides. You have over here the picture of this in the Rashi. So you see, Reuven owns three properties around and around, and Shimon owns the property in the middle. And what happened was, V'godar Esarishayna Vesashniya Vesashlishis. So Reuven, which is called a Makif, he's the person on the outside, he went and he put up a wall around three sides of the property. So where did he put up the wall? According to Rashi's Pshat, Reuven put up this wall between his and the Nikif, the inside, Shimon's property, in between them. Put up a wall in between them to protect from Hezekiah, to protect that there should be privacy, or he put up the wall that Shimon's animals shouldn't go into Reuven's property. So he put up three walls around. So then, we're not going to obligate Shimon to chip in to pay for these walls that Reuven put up around his property. Shimon is gaining now. Shimon is having hana from these walls that are placed on his property, but we're not going to obligate Shimon to have to pay for this. Now, but what do you understand from the Mishnah though? What happens if Reuven bought the fourth property and he totally encircled him? He bought another property on the fourth side of Shimon's property, and there he went and put up a fourth wall. Then now Shimon is totally encircled with four walls that Reuven put up around him. Shimon is going to have to chip in with this. What's the reason for this? The reason is because as long as there's three walls around this property, Shimon can turn around to Reuven and say, I'm not gaining from the walls that you put up. I'm still exposed from the fourth side. As long as my property is open from the fourth side, I'm not gaining. But now that Reuven encircled him from all four sides, so now you closed him in and he has a protected property. So now Shimon is gaining from this. Once he gains, he has hana, he's going to be chayiv to pay. Many Rishonim say that this is connected to a Gemara in Bava Metzia where it says there's a concept called Yored L'toich Stei Chaveiroi. When you go into a person's property, even without his permission, and you work in his property, you improve his property, he has to pay you, as long as it's a Sadeh HaAsuya Lita, if it's a place that is made for this improvement. So over here, you went and you encircled his property, you improved his property, you have to pay. Says the Gemara, Shema Mina, can't I prove from here? Zeh Nene, Shimon, the inside guy, he's having hana from his property being encircled with these walls. But V'zeh Chaser, Reuven that put up these walls is not losing out anything because of Shimon. Why did Reuven put up these walls? Reuven put up these walls for his own sake. He put up these walls because he wants his property to be private and protected from Shimon, the inside guy. He doesn't want Shimon to look at him. So Reuven put up the walls for his own sake. Shimon is not causing any loss to Reuven for this. But nevertheless, because Shimon is having a hana, Shimon is going to be chayiv. So I see that Shimon has to chip in with these walls, even though Reuven that put them up is not losing anything because of Shimon. And says the Gemara, no, over there he is losing because of Shimon. Why Shani Hassam, over there it's different. The Amalei, so the Makif, Reuven can say to Shimon, the Nikif, At Karamtili Akefi Yisayra. It's only because of you that I have to put up these extra walls. If not for you, if I would want my property to be private, what do I do? I just put up walls on the outside of all of my properties, and that's it, I'm private. Because you're living on the inside, now I have to put up the walls to separate between me and you. So you can't say that these walls that I put up are not associated with you at all. There is a chesaron that is caused by you. So since you're having hana, I improved your property, so therefore you have to chip in with these walls. So this is a case of nene and chaser. Toshama, the Gemara brings a raya from the next opinion over there in that Mishnah. Rabbi Yosi says, "Im Amad Nikif v'Gader Eserevius." What happens if the Nikif, meaning Shimon, the inside guy, he went and put up the fourth wall? Then Megalgal and all of a Sakayl. Then the Nikif, the inside guy, is going to have to pay his part for all four walls. That's what Rabbi Yosi says. So now the Gemara understands that Rabbi Yosi was actually being more lenient than the Tana Kama. The Tana Kama says, as long as a fourth wall was put up, it doesn't matter who put up the fourth wall, now he's totally encircled, so the inside guy, Shimon, is going to have to pay. But Rabbi Yossi says only if the nikif, if the inside guy himself goes and puts up the fourth wall, then he has to chip in. Taime the goda nikif. If the nikif puts up the fourth wall, so then he's going to have to chip in, because if he's putting up the fourth wall, he's showing that he's ready to spend money to surround his property with walls. So then you're going to have to pay for all the walls over here. But ha makif, what's if the outside guy, Reuven, is the one that put up the fourth wall, pater? Then the inside Shimon is going to be pater to pay for this. Why is it going to be pater? Shema mina isn't the reason, because because Shimon is having hana when he's totally encircled, but Reuven on the outside is loy chaser. He put up the wall for his own sake. And so therefore, here you see, according to Rabbi Yossi, that the reason why you would be pater is because and over here, at this point, the Gemara doesn't hold, according to Rabbi Yossi, that is, there's not a hold of the svara that the Gemara just said before, at geram tali akefi yisayda, that you're causing me extra walls. The Gemara over here, Rabbi Yossi doesn't hold to this. So the Gemara says, no, over here it's shani hasam. Over there, the reason why you're going to be pater, the amalei lididi sagili benetira barzuza, because Shimon could say that I don't have any anah from your walls that you put up. You put up these big, nice brick walls to surround me. I'm not chipping in with such expensive walls. For me, even if I'm having anah from these walls, for me it would be enough to have cheap walls. It would be extremely cheap. So I can maybe chip in to pay for those cheap walls. But expensive walls, I have no anah from that. I have no interest in that. So therefore it doesn't pay. This is Rashi's pshat in the Gemara here. There is another pshat in the Rishonim that say that the walls that Reuven, the makif, put up are not walls between the nikif and the makif. It's walls that he put up on the outside. And even though the walls were put up all on the outside of his properties, nevertheless, Shimon, which is on the inside, is also benefiting from that, because it's still blocking out all the traffic that's on the outside in this area. Okay, it's pshat in the Gemara is a little bit different. Another ayah the Gemara brings Tashema. We learned in the Mishnah, it says Habayis v'ha aliyah. You have a house and a second floor. One person owns and lives on the bottom floor, and the second person lives on the top floor. Shoshnayim, two people, shenaflu, and this house collapsed and fell down. So Amma Balaliyah Balabayis, the owner of the second floor, says to the one on the first floor, live nice, let's rebuild. And the owner of the second floor is not interested in rebuilding. So what happens? So the owner of the second floor can go ahead and build the first floor, and he lives in the house on the first floor. Until the Bala Aliyah from the second floor will pay for the expenses of the building of the first floor. And then he goes and builds on top the second floor, and he'll live in the second floor. But as long as the Baal Aliyah does not want to build with him, so he lives in the first floor. Says the Gemara, what do you see over here? The owner of the Baal Aliyah, he has to pay the expenses of what he built for him. He built him the house, the first floor. But that's what he has to pay. But to pay the schar, that he does not have to pay. Meaning, maybe we should also deduct, shouldn't we also deduct the time that the Baal Ha'aliyah lived in the Baal Abayis, in the Bayis that is. For this time, you lived over there. Let's say it took a year until this guy came and put the funds together and is paying you now for what you built him here, the bottom floor. But for all this time, you're living in his space. His space is the bottom floor. So why shouldn't you have to pay for the rental of that space of this time period? The reason is because you're having hana, but he's loy chaser. He's not losing anything out. Why not? Because he wasn't ready to build his house. There was no house over here. He wasn't ready to build it. You went ahead and built it yourself. So you're having hana, and he's loy chaser. So therefore, you don't deduct that amount for the rental for the time that you were living there. So Shema Mina, Zenene, Vezele Chaser, you had hana, you lived in this house for this period of time, and the Baal Aliyah is loy chaser, and you're going to be pater. Answers the Gemara, no, the reason why you pater this is for a different reason. Shani Hasam de Beisa la Aliyah Mishtabed. When you have a house, the first floor and the second floor, it's the obligation of the owner of the second floor to provide that there should be a first floor, that then the Aliyah will be on top of that. So in other words, the Bala Bayis, that is. The Bala Bayis has the obligation to be mishabed that there should be the first floor in order that the second floor should be there. So if the Bala Bayis is not ready to build the first floor, and now the Baal Aliyah says, I'm going to build the first floor. It's your responsibility to provide for me that first floor, that I should be able to build my second floor. So the fact that I built in your house, that I lived in your house, that's your obligation. So therefore, you don't have to pay for the rental of living there in the first floor as long as you refuse to build the first floor of the house. Toshama, but the Gemara brings now a raya from the second opinion of that Mishnah there. Rabbi Yehuda argues. Rabbi Yehuda says, you lived in your friend's house and you lived over there without asking him if you can rent for him. You are going to have to pay for the rental of the first floor that you're living in. So when he's going to have to pay you for the expenses of this house that you built for him, we're going to have to deduct the difference of the rental, which is that you lived in this first floor for this period of time. So what do we see over here? The person that lived in this floor that he built, he's having a no from living here. And v'zeh loy chaser. The Balabayas is not chaser anything. Why not? Because there was no house. He wasn't ready to build it, Bechlal. You were the one that built the house, and he's loy chaser. Nevertheless, you have to pay him for this time, this rental that you live there. And says the Gemara, over there, it is chaser. Why? Shani hasam, over there, that case is different. Mishum shachrurisa da'ashiyasa. What happens is, you build this new house, and now you're living there for a period of time. By the time the Balabayas is ready to pay you for this house that you built him, and now you're going to build your second floor, and you're going to move into the second floor, he's going to move into the house in the bottom. What is he going to discover? He has a house that somebody else lived there already. The walls are a little bit black. There's blackening on the walls. You did cause him a certain chesaron. So because of that chesaron that you caused him, so you have to pay for the rentals. Then you rented there, and he is chaser, so therefore you do have to pay for that. The chesaron over here is a very little chesaron. It's not a very big chesaron. But some Rishonim say that even though the chesaron is very little, but still you have to pay for the full price of the rental. Even though it's just a little bit that the walls are a little bit black, you could just paint it over, but it doesn't matter. The moment there's a little bit of a chaser, you have to pay for the full nene. Okay, so the Gemara brings regarding this shaila, shalchua bei Rab Ami. They sent this shaila to ask Rab Ami what would be the halacha. Omar Rab Ami said. Again, this is the shaila of Zen Nene, V'Zel Loy Chaser. So Rab Ami said, V'chima Asalei. What did he do to him? If he's Loy Chaser, Uma Chaser, what lack is he causing him? Uma Zikai, how did he damage him? So therefore he paskin that Zen Nene, V'Zel Loy Chaser is potter. Rab Chia bar Abba said, Nisyashe b'davar. I have to think this over. He says, you can't pater this person. He had a no from the money, and it has a value to you that you took from another person. Even if he didn't lose, it's not so pashut that you pater. They sent again to ask him this question. So Omar, Rab Chia bar Abba said, Kula hai shalchu li v'azli. They keep on sending me people to ask me this question. If I would have found a reason to paskin clearly that you potter, would I not send them an answer? So he didn't. If I didn't send the answer, it's because I wasn't sure about this. So therefore, he didn't know exactly what the halach is. Okay, the Gemara here is a continuation. We'll see Mitzvah tomorrow.